My jaw was on the ground earlier reading this new report slash prediction from Think Progress and the Sydney Morning Herald. And what they did is by using standard economic models and extrapolating out into the future, they calculated that by the year 2040, okay, so not that far off in the future, the world will see its first trillionaire. Let that settle in, man. Let that marinate in your brain for a second. The world will see its first trillionaire. It's inevitable we're going to see a trillionaire, okay? That's inevitable. Just the question is, when are we going to see our first trillionaire? And they say it's going to happen as soon as the year 2040. Damn, man. So right now, Bill Gates has $120 billion, and they say that if he lives that long, it'll likely be him that becomes the world's first trillionaire. Look, I need you to really think about that, okay? Put aside the different economic arguments I could give you on this topic or political arguments or implications of this. Just think about it from a real-world, grounded, common-sense perspective. Think about the amount of money you have in your bank account or your family has in their bank account or whatever, and compare that to other people you've met. I mean, we've all met a few rich people, right? And what, you know a rich person whose net worth is like 1.4 million maybe, right? And that person pretty much doesn't have to worry about their bills. In fact, there were studies on happiness that said people who make $75,000 a year or more, your happiness doesn't change. So if you make less than $75,000, your happiness can actually fluctuate based on your finances because it's hard to really have income security when you're making less than 75 grand. But 75 grand and up, there's no difference in your happiness level if you make 75,000, 125,000, 600,000, 2 million a year, because either way you can pretty much take care of what you need to take care of if you make the $75,000 number or more. But what we're talking about here, somebody who has like 1.4 million, they're fairly secure, right? Depending on where they live and, how much expenses they have. If they're living this ridiculous lifestyle where they're buying Maseratis and 3 mansions and this and that, yeah, in that case, you might blow through the money and fuck it up, right? But most people, you can be relatively secure. 1.4 million, 2 million, whatever it is. We're talking about not even a billion, which is 1,000 million, okay? We're talking about $1 trillion. $1 trillion. That's 1,000 billion. Whoa, man. Whoa. Just to put that in perspective for you, that means that by the year 2040, one person would have more money than the entire gross domestic product of Finland, Portugal, Romania, Poland, South Africa, Australia. One person with more money than the gross domestic product of Australia. That's unbelievable. We're talking about a civilized modern country with Australia. Very developed country. One person would have more money than the GDP of fucking Australia today. Okay. If we get to the point where somebody becomes a trillionaire, they have more money than the GDP of a majority of the countries on the planet. Think about that. One person more money than the GDP of the majorities of the countries on the planet. That's out of this world insanity. Okay? We've gone too far, guys. We've gone too far. In fact, we crossed that line a long, long time ago. Look, you guys know, if you listen to the show on a regular basis, you know, I consider myself an international moderate or an international centrist. In other words, I'm not this like big-time liberal, progressive, socialist guy, right? It's just that within the context of the U.S., I appear to be this uber-progressive because the U.S. spectrum is so far to the right that it's insane. So the problem is when you get wealth that's this out of whack, you've created deep systemic issues, okay? You've created a new Gilded Age, And the old Republican right-wing meme of what my wealth doesn't make you poor, that's absolutely false. That's absolutely false because the amount of wealth in existence is like a pie chart, okay? And you do have to divvy it up in one way or another. Yes, you create wealth as time goes along, but there's still, at the end of the day, a finite amount of money on the planet. So therefore, you are divvying it up. And if you have a system where one person is worth $1 trillion, and in the same system, we have people who don't have health insurance, medical bills is the number one cause of bankruptcy, people need help from the government to feed their fucking kids. We have over 10 million people in the U.S. that are members of the working poor class, which means they could work a full-time job and not make enough money to survive. The minimum wage still doesn't allow you to survive, even if you work full-time. You know, we can go on and on here. All these different indicators that something is way out of whack in the system, it gets to the point where it doesn't matter what you consider yourself politically, what you think of economics. And again, I am a capitalist. I believe in a regulated version of capitalism. You need government and efficient regulation, but yes, you need an element of capitalism for a system to function, in my opinion. I think that harnesses human nature. But when it gets to this point, you've gone so far beyond anything that's reasonable that it's laughable. You know, it's absolutely laughable. And look, this is why you need a high marginal tax rate. You know, you need a high marginal tax rate because if you don't have that, then 1% of the society or 0.01% of the society, they'll end up owning everything and they'll have all of the wealth and all of the means of production and all of the money, and everybody else fights for the crumbs. See, that's what happens when you have a purely capitalist system with no government and no regulation and no unions and no labor laws. What happens is this incredible disconnect where you have a ruling class and then everybody else, you know, we're nothing. We're nothing. This is what you see in all so-called developing nations, third world nations. The U.S., unfortunately, with our deregulation and tax cuts for the rich and embracing that kind of economic structure, we're going down that same road too, which is why something like this is about to happen. We're about to have a trillionaire. I mean, let me give you some more numbers real quick, some more facts, just so you see the extent of the problem. Just 400 Americans, 400, have more wealth than half of all Americans combined. Is that okay with you? Do you think that makes sense? Where people can't feed their kids, but 400 people have more money than half the fucking country? Does that make sense? How about this one? The richest 1% have more financial wealth, so wealth is everything, all of your assets, than the bottom 95% combined. Okay, they own us. Or how about the fact that the average CEO to worker pay ratio used to be 42-1 in the 1980s? What's it now? 354-1. Unbelievable. Or how about the fact that just the 6 members of the Walton family have more money than 45% of America? 6 people more money than 45% of the country. And the most devastating fact of all, the 85 richest people have more wealth than the bottom 3.5 billion people in the world. 85 people more money than half the world combined. Okay, you could fit 85 people on one of those double-decker buses. So that many people has more than half the world combined. Look, I'll say it again. I'm a capitalist, man. I'm a capitalist. I do believe in that kind of a system. I do believe in a meritocracy to a certain extent. But I'm also not an idiot, okay? I'm also not an extremist. So in other words, you have to have mitigating factors. You have to have a high marginal income tax rate to stop this nonsense, okay, and stop the ridiculous passing down of wealth from generation to generation so you create Paris Hiltons and Kim Kardashians and spoiled fucks that can't do anything, but they're just rich because they're part of the good sperm club, okay? This is why you need a high minimum wage, a strong minimum wage. This is why you need labor unions to fight back against runaway wealth that can corrupt a system. So look, bottom line on this, man, if you can hear this information and these facts and you think, sounds fine to me, there's a problem, you know? Your brain must be broken if you can hear these things and go, yeah, rock and roll, I'm in favor of it.